Polar exploration is at once the cleanest and most isolated way of having a bad time, which has been devised. and, and I could not.
That's as beautifully articulated as possible.
It perfectly summarizes the essence of polar exploration. And so what drew me to it, as weird as that may sound, is that because unlike, let's say, often the comparison is, let's say, Everest or mountain climbing, and I've done a lot of mountain climbing. Mountain climbing is far more dangerous for sure, but it's not nearly as much suffering, mental or physical. You know, for example, when I was climbing Denali, there's on the 16 ridge at 16,000 feet, you're on this thin ridge line with 1,000-foot plus drop on each side. So when you're on that, your mind has to be in the moment. The environment forces you into flow, right? And as you're going up and down the mountain, the views change, the terrain changes. So it's a little bit more dynamic, which makes it mentally engaging. In polar travel, you are just skiing in empty white nothingness day after day after day, doing the same damn thing. You're not off. I mean, sometimes we do take storm days, but you're not taking rest days to acclimatize like you do on a mountain. It's not dynamic. And because it's just flat white nothingness, the environment doesn't force you into flow. Your mind wanders. And that is brutally challenging because your mind will take you places, right? And sometimes you could be skiing an hour, could feel like a lifetime when you're out there in that nothingness. Whereas if you're in an environment like a thin ridge line, you lose sense of time because you're in that flow, right? Time doesn't matter. You're just thinking about that next step in front of you. With polar travel, you have to control that. You have to control your mind to bring yourself into the present, which is far easier said than done. And that's the spiritual pursuit. That's why it's again, not as dangerous as mountain climbing, but in terms of the mental and physical unrelenting grind that is polar travel, that to me is the draw. And that's when it becomes that very spiritual experience of finding something within yourself to transcend the suffering, to transcend that struggle, to bring your mind out of that realm where it's controlling you and where you control it, where you can find that stillness, right? And again, you'll find stillness for a moment, then it wanders again, and you have to bring it back, or you have to choose where you direct it. And that constant inner battle you're going through, it's while again very, very challenging, it's very beautiful because it teaches you so much about not just yourself, but about the human condition and what we're all capable of. You know, that's why I go. Like, you're opening doors into the human soul that so rarely ever get to be open. And for me, a big part of the responsibility is bringing the wisdom back from the edge and now sharing it with experiences like this, like being on the podcast here, doing public speaking events, you know. And because I get to go so far out onto the edge in these very, very, very extreme circumstances, I get to open new doors that aren't otherwise open, so I get to access new wisdom that isn't otherwise accessed. And I don't say this in an egotistical way because it's not about me. It's about like a message is delivered through me through these arenas that I get to play in, and that allows me to share things that I would not be able to share had I not gone there.
Yeah. The endurance aspects of what you're talking about, like I could see, like just watching some of the videos that you have, put up from polar, like my hands are sweating seeing some of the storms and stuff like that are going in there. It's like
a polar storm is one of the most unforgiving, savage.
Oh my, yeah. I'm sitting there like the first time I saw like Alex Honnold do the free solo, and I'm like clutching my like chair watching it, like holding my breath. I'm like, I know he's okay, but it's still, it kind of taps in. But I can see the difference, like of climbing a mountain. Like you get in that flow, like you get in that flow feeling. And I would assume too, like on that too, like, like you're getting somewhere, like you can see progress, where on like a polar expedition, that's like a purgatory, like everything's the exact same, where it's, I can imagine the physical side of it. I totally, because I've said, but the mental side of the endurance of staying within kind of your own. Or do you allow your mind to wander when you're down there? Or do you really need to like keep a specific focus? Like, how does that work?
Great question. There's value in both. There's two kinds of meditation, and this becomes its own meditation. People often think of meditation as where you're just silencing your mind and, anchoring your thoughts to your breath or a mantra or something. And that is one, but the other one is where you actually let your mind wander and see where it takes you. And there's not one's not better or worse. Each one has its place. So there are times where you really want your mind to wander, and I want to see what's going to show up, And to me, I mean, sometimes it's me talking to myself, sometimes, and we all have our own version of what this word means, but it's God speaking to me, and you hear things like only in real silence can you start to hear, because otherwise you're no longer distracted by the world, by all these tools or computer or phone, even other people. And again, it's a beautiful thing. Like, I have great friends here, I'm connected, but in real silence. That's also a big draw to why I went to the darkness retreat and spend 10 days in complete darkness, because in that silence, you get to start to hear things that you don't otherwise get to hear. And Antarctica is its own version of that. And it's wild to see where your mind will take you and to see what's revealed to you. I call them spiritual downloads that I get, through these experiences. And every time I'm out there, whether it be in the darkness or in the Arctic that I just came from, some spiritual download will hit. And it's the difference between a spiritual download and like a conceptual understanding is, I might have read the concept in a book or maybe heard it before, but
Sure.
when you experience it, now it's visceral. It transcends conceptual thought, which has its own limitations, and it goes into a knowing, right? There's a difference between a thinking and a knowing.